Hello and welcome to Horseplayer Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker once again, though not for long. Very excited. I've been on the shows. I don't think I've missed a show in terms of appearing, at least doing a look back into Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge or Breeders' Cup betting in general history. Maybe we'll do one of those. Maybe my feet will be put to the fire on this show to tell a betting story from Breeders' Cup's past. But it's good to be back in the host chair. Thanks to JK for ably sitting here. He is busy with his other gig right now because, of course, this is a very special edition of the show. It is Saratoga opening day, and we've got a thrilling contest going on. We'll get to a leaderboard update in a minute. But first, I want to introduce the co-host on the show. He's appeared on Horseplayer Happy Hour doing one of those betting segments earlier in the meet with me. From In the Money Media, he is your reigning Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge champion, Drew Coatney. Drew, how are things?
I'm doing good. How are you this afternoon?
Things are good. I'm tired. I'm not going to lie. So I would have woken up at the equivalent of midnight Eastern time to start my journey today. Now, I did sleep on the plane, so it's not a total hard luck story. But the body is in the throes of jet lag, which is why my happy hour beverage of choice, at least for now, we'll see. Maybe I'll get an alcoholic one later. But we're starting with the caffeine because I want to make sure, and I just spilled it all over my keyboard because that's the kind of day that you have when you're brain dead with jet lag. But it didn't seem to knock out the broadcast. So that's the good news. And yeah, caffeine, the beverage of choice for now. Maybe the alcohol will make me feel a little bit better. Maybe we'll get to that as we get on with the show. Drew, I understand you are playing in this Horseplayer Happy Hour. Have you been playing every week? How's it been going? Have you
I've been trying to play every week. I think I've missed a couple here and there. Sitting 15th right now. Yarrow helped build that up. Top 17 are getting into the Saturday qualifier, $179 buy-in, with the 18th getting their breakage back, so getting their $20 back at the end of it. And it's been fun. And we missed you. I heard you were over there for so long because you were trying to establish citizen and apply for a Scottish passport over there. Because I hear they're pretty easy to come by. I hear.
I am a Scottish landowner now. That much is true. I own a square foot of property in the Scottish Highlands. This was a gift from my tour guide / friend, but that's a story from another time. Citizenship may be a bridge too far, but yeah, we'll talk all about the trip. We got a lot of stuff to get to. I think we should start with the reset that I typically like to do at the beginning of these things, and we'll do it a little bit of a different way. You know, we talk about how there are 3 different ways to qualify for the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge via Horseplayer Happy Hour. The first being the one you were just describing, Drew, what we might call the traditional route. You finish in the top 10% in this $20 qualifier and you advance to the Saturday game. You basically win your $179 entry, and then top finishers from the Saturday event get a chance. I mean, obviously they win outright their $10,000 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. So that's one way to go about it. But then, of course, there's this element of the Horseplayer Happy Hour Tour where we have an overall champion. The best certain amount of scores throughout the year adds up to sort of a winner take all for a BC seat. But then maybe the most interesting wrinkle, the one that I really like because it gives you a chance to participate in the prize pool, even if you just play 1 week. The top 2 finishers every week qualify for our postseason. The postseason field being rounded out by other tour finishers. But you show up any week, you grab a second, you get a chance to play in an 80-player tournament for a third, really a second free Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. And then the thing we always like to talk about, the house cut of that $20, that goes right to Thoroughbred Aftercare, the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, and the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. So it's all for a good cause. And then we get together, rotating cast of characters this year with JK has his TV responsibilities. Matt Bernier, obviously, we'll have him on doing some pre-tapes, but he's always on TV now on Thursday afternoons. Want to pull in Michelle. Maybe we can get Michelle next week, right before, it might be our last shot before Del Mar starts, and she's working Thursdays. But you and I are going to be here a whole bunch as well. So there's a lot going on when it comes to these Horseplayer Happy Hour shows. And I'll ask it to you in the most basic way possible. What is it, as put aside your business relationship and the fact that Breeders' Cup are great partners and we love promoting the Challenge Series races and all that. What do you like as a player about these Horseplayer Happy Hour events?
Yeah, I think these are great little events from the charity element to start. I heard Kim Weir yesterday on Steve Bick promoting the quick call race and all the great things that they do at the TRF there.
JK had her on the early week show as well. Folks should check that out too.
Oh yeah, right, with JK right after Old Smoke.
That's right.
And our friends over there. So yeah, that's the first part. And then I think the second part is just kind of what we're doing here. Tail end of the day, you get an hour to listen into all sorts of folks talk. JK had some fun cast of characters. I don't know if you got to catch the Vanessa Ryle miming sketch that they did.
I heard about it. That was truly ridiculous. I have no idea what was going on there, but it sounds like they made it work for a podcast segment with no audio. It sounds like it did okay. Yeah,
and I think lastly, it's just the best deal in town. $20 to get in to a qualifier at 179. The cut goes to a good cause, so it's kind of hard to pass up. And then at the end of the year, if you've had a couple top finishes to get into the postseason, not a bad way to go.
All the better. How has I've introduced you as the reigning Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge champion. You've talked extensively about what that meant to you at the time. How do you feel approaching this year's event? You're presumably going to be participating once again, defending your title. How is it different this time around, just in terms of your mindset heading in?
Yeah, I think there's a little pressure. A little pressure is one thing. I've kind of, as you said, that went completely over my head, the strawberry alarm clock reference that I am not.
Not a one-hit wonder. That was the idea.
Not a one-hit wonder. Yeah, the Grade 1 Gamble helped validate, and then getting out to be hosted by Tom Quigley and his crew out there to finish fourth in the Belmont Challenge that ExpressBet put up. I finished fourth, and ironically, I can go down a deeper rabbit hole of kind of the race was lost on a probable. So I'll save that story whenever you're ready to get into it, because it talks about contest strategy and cash tournaments, and sometimes when you have to pack up your ball and go home and you don't have an opinion.
Right. Well, we'll get there. That is a little down the rabbit hole. We will get there, though. I do think there's a lot of people joining in who appreciate the deeper sort of strategy conversations, and we'll get to that. We'll encourage people also to make some comments. That's one of the super fun elements of these shows. One of the things that I like the most is that opportunity to interact with the audience. We do a bunch of different shows, but one of the things that makes this one unique, not just following the contest in real time, but having the opportunity to talk with people. I do want to talk. I don't know. How much of Saturday have you looked at yet for Saratoga? Did you look at the Diana?
I did look at the Diana because Fev Rover and as I think JK's been calling me the king of Woodbine, I think. So Fev Rover being the import coming down to make the trip. I can't imagine it's a tremendously long van ride to get up down from Toronto to Saratoga Springs, but
6 or 7 hours. It's no joke. But it's not the longest thing in the world. Yeah, we will talk about that later. But with 4 minutes to post here, and they're still in the paddock, so I wonder if it is going to be a little bit longer than that in the end. They originally moved up post times because of weather, but maybe they have some new information, or maybe they're just going to hustle them out there and go right to the gate. But let's take a minute and talk about this race. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. Before we do that, Craig. Craig, I'll give you a minute because I didn't prep you for this at all. Let's look at this contest leaderboard so far. I think this is a good chance for that. We'll do the leaderboard, and then we will get to this race coming up, and encourage our folks, especially our regulars, to drop us a line in the comments. Michael Robinson right now in first with 54.70. Mark Mahoney 44.90. Nathan White 41.70, tied with Lou Mazzarelli. Good to see Lou's name on there. Hung out with him at the paddock bar many times. Mark Stovall, Bruce Meyer, a regular. Michael Cavana, a regular, former final panelist. Michael Domable, great to see his name in there. Going to be doing some great stuff for us for Colonial Downs. William Moravec, and we'll do a couple more. Why not? Daryl Parker, that's a new name. Brendan Snodgrass, we've seen that one before. Sam Sample, we're just in behind Scott McGovern. Michael Chiapidis, Drew Coatney in 15th, Dave Duncan and Domable there again in 16th, and we'll give honorable mention tied in 16th to Togo Travaglia and Chris Couples, regulars who we see on there. Oh, and John Gasper, another regular, and actually our first ever Horseplayer Happy Hour Tour champion right now in 22nd, David Browning. Lots of great names, and I love the mix of old and new. How do you feel about where you are right now, Drew? You pleased with this position? You feeling good about advancing to Saturday and potentially picking up some tour points?
Yeah. I feel good right now. The next couple races are like wide open. So if I hit one of the 7th, 8th, or 10th, I think I'll lock in my spot. Even a place, I think, will get me up there. So I feel good with the pick and pray format. I've got some blockers in there kind of automatically. I think there were some shorter prices. Like, I don't think I've hit a horse over 3-1. Yeah, I've had 3 straight winners with Selima, Dust Devil, and Yarrow. So
what's your strategy generally? You mentioned liking pick and pray. How do you just go for the classic sort of play who you like type of a situation, or do you only look in certain price ranges? How would you describe to somebody your general approach to these kind of contests? So different from the live bankroll stuff you're known for. Yeah,
and there's I play what I like, but I also look at the kind of perspective of where do I think the odds are going to fall. I think that's something that any horse player can get really good at, of anticipating where the market's going to put their money. And so, right, Selima was going to be short, but I figured she was going to be pretty dominant in that race. So paying $6.80 total, not terrible, but
that's a bettable favorite in my opinion. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I bet with both fists and cash on the side. But at the end of the day, when I'm picking longer price horses, it's not from this is too short, so therefore it's more of the probability is going to be all out of whack, especially in this next race. I think there are some horses to beat, but I don't know. Taking 5-2 in this race seems like an insane proposition, cash or in terms of a $2 win place.
To put words in your mouth, as has often been my job, it sounds to me like you're just looking for value wherever you find it, whether that's a very, very live favorite that's going to play $7, or knowing that the favorites are maybe ones to swerve and just looking for that horse that, you maybe think should be 6 or 8 to 1 that ends up being 19 to 1, like this horse in this spot who you took, the 8 runner. What did you like about the 8 here?
Yeah, it started with I didn't like a lot of anything else. A lot of the other horses in here, like the number 5, Saforadada, if I'm saying that right, came back off of a break and ran an allowance at Belmont, and you just kind of ran around there in a good way, pressed the pace, and just couldn't get the job done. Looks to have a wide trip. I haven't gone back and watched the full replay, but is going to have to be able to boogie earlier. It doesn't seem to like to pass horses a ton. So it's kind of an anti-opinion of some of these favorites in the 8. Showed some good speed and started to do something a little different, and gets a first time for Dutrow, and Manny Franco stays aboard. So, I mean, just kind of a speed play. If they can get loose going 7, and if this horse can survive a full 8 furlongs, there's no reason that this 3-year-old could step forward. So I'm looking at age as well in terms of how much progression we can expect. Now, maybe the light bulb went off on this horse, and I'm willing to take a shot in a $2 win place at 20 to 1. That I feel like if this horse gets even second, I walk away with my $179 entry on Saturday.
Yeah, it'll certainly help. You might get close to a place cap. The pace angle is interesting here. I mean, time form is obviously not weighting the last race very much, because time form has Mersal actually projected to be last, but that's based on the pedestrian pace figures from before the last race. That June 4th run, attacking that fast pace and going on with it would certainly, you'd think, be among the leaders here. That's an interesting reckoning, and a good case with Franco riding through the claim in a race that just looks probably a little bit more open than the betting on Sa Foradada suggests that it should be. What about a runner like Into Happiness in this spot? This is another first off the claim, this time for Mark Hennig. This was a horse I sort of liked the position I thought she was going to be in, assuming and this is embarrassing to say because I've been running around so much. I don't know if do you have an opinion on how the rail's been so far at Saratoga? I mean, that can sometimes early in the meet, it seems like being down there isn't the best, and Into Happiness has to navigate that going 7. But I thought it was a little bit interesting at 7-1.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, especially in the 9 furlong event they ran with Portos and oh, the name's going to escape me here. I'll look it up. But the jockeys did all they could to stay way off the rail, floating as wide as they could. Dust Devil was the other horse's name.
Right, of course.
So just based on that fact, and I've seen a couple longer shots kind of fade on the rail. It's not. I would lean it towards negative, but not change my whole handicapping opinion.
Nothing definitive. I may take a little nibble here with the 1 and see what happens. If you're out there, let us know who you're approaching. We got Chris Couples in the chat. Oh, we got a lot of people have chimed in, starting with Kimbo, who is asking a question about the post times. And yeah, post times in America are not. It's not like the U.S. As you can see, over there, it's the 410 from Nottingham. It's not the 3rd race at Nottingham. Here, we go by race number, and they get full license to move things around based on various factors. Sometimes it's the really annoying, irritating, and I'm not even sure correct belief that putting races off late increases handle. Sometimes they'll do it for that reason. Classic sort of post-drag. In this case, I think they were moving races up, Kimbo, because of the fear of weather. I think there's supposed to be some bad weather in the area tonight. So I think that's what that is about. Matt Miller chimes in, a huge supporter of Horseplayer Happy Hour, says it's good to see us. He did his usual 60-second morning line-based picks this morning, and feels like he'll have an entry up higher on the board after this next one. We'll go to the leaderboard and see who he's so confident about that he's saying that, Drew. You look that up while I go through some of the other comments. Chris Couples talking about the 7th race, typically not a race to look because he thinks it's volatile, but ended up with a lone A in the picks in the form of Condiment Girl. So I wonder if Condiment Girl is who Chris ended up with in terms of selection for these contests. 9-2 on the morning line, another with speed, another off a claim. Very tricky. Well, I feel like an opening day at Saratoga, trainers are pointing for this spot, and you see so many of them coming off the claim here. It's just another reason why it would make me a little hesitant. And maybe we're just knocking the 5 into the winner's circle here, Drew. But, with all these trainers taking shots and really carefully selecting a horse to compete in this race, presumably, it does make me wonder about taking too short of a price. And Chris furthers the case on Condiment Girl, 2 for 2 at 7 furlongs, and feels like we'll be outside of the speed for first run, which sounds completely reasonable to me. We'll say hello to Victor, who's chiming in. Rob, another big supporter. Happy opening day. Back to you. Matt Miller also talks about the 9 Condiment Girl at 9-2. Who, I think that's certainly prefer to the two favorites. I think at the prices based on the cases we've heard and just that idea of a horse. 28 days ago when this book was out, potentially being claimed for this spot. We'll see how Condiment Girl and all the rest of them get on here as it's now post time for this 7th race here at Saratoga. You going to do any cash betting here, Drew, or is this all about just riding the contest pick for you?
No, I'm looking at doing a little bit of a double here. The more I look at this race, I think there could be a smidge of pace, and this could set up pretty well for Safordata. So I might do a little double 5 into the next race with Sea Cottage and a smidge of, if my PTs will load, the number 1. Thundering Dan, I think is the horse's name.
I think it's just Thunder. I think it's Thunder Ian.
Thunder Ian. And who was the other one that was in here that was fun? I think that was just those 2. So 80% of my money would run through Sea Cottage here. So, all right, hold on. We got to put bets in quick.
Yeah, you get those bets put in, and we'll talk them into the gate, and then we'll send it. We'll send it out to Frank with the call here in a minute, Craig. We're gonna do that unless we have Michelle to call the races. We're gonna do more of letting the actual race callers do their job here. But there's a couple left to load, so I'll keep it going. Hopefully everybody out there enjoying their Saratoga opening day. More to come. We'll talk Diana. We'll talk about Drew's strategy at the end of that Santa Anita contest, and we'll yap a little bit about the trip to England. Maybe I will even go grab a tipple that I got on said trip for the next portion of the show. It is Horseplayer Happy Hour after all. All right, Craig, I think we have enough of them loaded now that we can send this out to Frank for the call.
Thanks, Greg. We're waiting on Safora Dada and needs some money. Safora Dada is in. Needs some money to the outside. Takes up her spot. They're in the gate. And they're off. Needs some money out quickly. Here's Condiment Girl, though. Condiment Girl takes command early. Graceful Rose. Condiment Girl is down at the rail in third. Here's Safora Dada coming alive in the center of the track. Mersal on the outside up to take the lead inside the final eighth of a mile. Graceful Rose on the extreme outside. Into Happiness, who was so far back, is flying late. And Into Happiness blows by them all. Into Happiness wins it by almost 3. Safora Dada was second. Then it was Mersal in third. And a close photo for fourth.
That's a gross beat, my friend. I thought you might win there. And then I thought you might hold second. That's a good bad beat face, though.
This is the worst way to watch races on this stream. So for anyone who doesn't know, we've got this like little portal thing set up. And it's like watching it's not the cleanest of feeds. So like watching your horse judderily like fade down the lane just adds salt to the wound. So I'm gonna have to figure something else out here because
yeah, get a monitor. That is what I highly recommend getting a monitor. But yeah, the horse fired, the 9 fired, the 8 fired, and the 5 actually fired okay, but it was just one of those where the horse that moved last moved best. Did what price was the winner there?
7-1. I hope you got stuck in.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was this is how jet lagged I am. That I forgot that was the horse I had bet a small amount of money on. But we'll take it. We'll take 7-1. Yeah, we just needed to play the try there, and we would have been absolutely fine.
Oh yeah. Stick around. We'll give out some more winners. Oh, heaven.
I'm not too sure we're going to give out that level of try anytime soon. But
that's going to pay well.
Yeah, it's going to be okay, even with the favorite in there in second. So
yeah, they went almost 45 in change, 45.9 to the half. Holy smokes, they were flying.
Yeah, it was an exciting finish, even though it wasn't the one that you were looking for. I kind of forgot and was just rooting for you at that giant price up top, but no points for third in these Horseplayer Happy Hour contests. Unfortunately, perfectly timed ride from John Velasquez, and Mark Henning, who's an extremely nice dude, gets a winner on opening day Saratoga. Very meaningful winner there for him as they're trying to beat the heat up there at the spot. Let's go back to some of these other topics. Let's do your Santa Anita story first, because I thought that sounded really interesting. You said there were two separate aspects to it. One was you said you misjudged a probable. We'll start with that, and then you can tell me what you meant when you said that you ended up not having enough of an opinion to actually make your characteristic big play in the last that you did so well with at both Keeneland, Keeneland twice, Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, and then again in the Grade 1 Gap.
Yeah. And so I plot my days, and I know Matt's watching as well. He helped coach me to get to this type of strategy. But I plot my days well in advance before I even sit down on the day of the contest. So all the handicapping's done. All of the even plays are done. There's some ifs then statements. If this happens, then that has to happen. And my goal was to get to $3,500 to bet the Cody Wish into up to the mark. And my assumption was that probable was going to pay 5.5x. Now, the starting bankroll for that tournament, I forget exactly what it was, but the winning number was going to be between 18 and 20, just based on historical, but also I think the multiple was about that 15 to 17x to get to that total bankroll. And so
when you're doing that 15 or 17x, that's based on the starting bankroll, not what it pays to get in the contest, right? So if it's a $5,000 contest, but you're only betting $3,000 as bankroll, and you're talking 15x, you're talking 45, 3 times 15.
Yep, absolutely. And so, I had plotted the course, got to the $3,500, and then pushed all in. And my thought was up to the mark wasn't going to take all of the money because there was a Euro import in there. I forget the horse's name. I thought was going to take some more money and get me 5.5x. And I wrote in my notes, if not 5.5, pack up your ball and go home and take the money. And be in a defensive posture, because in the Belmont Stakes, I mean, it's just a wonky distance. Anything can happen, and it kind of did, right? And Arcangelo was my top choice, but did I really have enough conviction to pull the trigger on a push with Arcangelo? And I could have afforded, I think, 2 others in the win. I would have won. I would have destroyed the field by I think $4,000 or $5,000. But the day was lost when the probable on that double paid 4.5 instead of 5.5. If it pays 4.5, I'm sitting at 19,000. I'm in the lead. I play the minimum in the stakes and I win. But it paid 4.5, left me short.
You said that backwards, by the way. If it paid 5.5, you would have been in a great spot heading in. It only paid 4.5, so you ended up, and it doesn't sound like that much difference, $1 on a double. But how much real money are you talking about here that you ended up with versus what you would have had?
Yeah, so I think I walked away with it was 13 plus another 4 plus another 6, so 22,000-ish, and there wasn't much difference between second and fourth, so I just mailed it in with a $190 bet, not bet myself out of position. See if I can't climb the leaderboard.
I still think you should have at least played that money on the horse you liked, Arcangelo, rather than the favorite. That's an interesting debate that I'd love to hear your explanation of.
Yeah, and I'll have to remember the specifics of it. Why it was not, I think it was, you had a chance to play a horse, 2 horses, right? Arcangelo, and I can't remember the other one, that didn't win. And it was a probability play. I put the horse on top, but it's not like I was married to the horse.
Sure. I mean, when you're making a pick in the paper for In the Money Plus, that's who, if somebody is asking you who should I play to win, you're giving them an idea. It's not the same, all races aren't created equal.
Right.
It's far from it. Sometimes a pick is just a pick. I mean, we've seen that with Jonathan where, he's given out, was it Henley's Joy a few years ago? $50 horse or more. And yes, he cashed, but people are assuming he cashed for the world. And it's like, well, that was one of 8 horses I played. It was just the one I liked the best.
Yeah, right. Well, it's like
it's not a dissimilar situation, really.
Yeah, and people forget, I played Jackie's Warrior all over the place in the Breeders' Cup, and I wrote an article about how Jackie's Warrior was a beatable favorite because I knew it was a...
Yeah, and talking more from the win pool point of view too, right? I mean, at 3 to 5 in the win pool, who needs it? As one horse to cover in a double, I mean, the horse is such a likely winner. You have a price in the other leg. Within the ecosystem of the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, that one made absolute sense to me. A little bit less so to me, just personally, my own 2 cents. A little bit less so to use Forte for when you're dealing with a minimum anyway. I figure you're playing so conservatively anyway. You like double conservative instead of and I don't think it would have mattered. I mean, to be fair, I don't think that Arcangelo money gets you that significantly ahead when you're only playing a $150 bet or whatever the heck it was. But it did strike me. Matt Miller himself points out that you would have just had to risk so much relative to what you had to gain, and that there is this idea. It's all situational to me. It's not. You're going to risk betting yourself out of a top spot when the reward is really there. And that could be in the form of a super strong opinion. Like, to me, the Flightline situation, which you famously made that all-in push, that made so much sense because it was freaking Flightline. And even though the horse was 2 to 5, really, I think a lot of us thought the horse was 1 to 5 or 1 to 9. It was already this betting opportunity of the year. And then when you had the chance to get that outside reward, it made sense to swing.
Yeah. And so, and for the record, if I pushed all in at the end, I would have won, sadly, I guess. But, so the Mike Maloney thought comes up of you got to pass some winners or else you're betting on too many. And when the grade 1 gamble came up, that was an all-in push, I think about 17 or 18,000. But the difference in NHCC, which is, that's an awesome reunion tour to go on, a Breeders' Cup seat, and second place, I think, got like another 20 or 30,000 on top of it, whatever it was. So like the difference from where I was to get to second place was going to be gargantuan. And so I didn't love those horses. I probably liked those horses less than I did in the Belmont, but the prize structure was in such a way that it warranted what I did in the grade 1 gamble. So
it all comes down to one's own assessment of risk and reward at the end of the day. It's one of the things we talk about so much. All right, let's do the Diana real quick because I think it's actually usually 5 horses, 4 trained by the same person. Not a race I'm in a hurry to spend a whole lot of time talking about, but this is actually a pretty interesting race. There's a few things going on here. And for me, the biggest question of the race is what is the course condition going to be? There is rain in the forecast. In Italian, all of her graded form is on firm. At 1 to 2 or shorter, if there is cut in the ground, I think I might actually take a little shot against her because I think there's kind of an interesting filly who's done well with cut in the ground in the past on the numbers, who does not have recent final numbers that are fast enough, meaning she's going to be a price, who's a terrific closer. I'm talking about Fluffy Socks. I think Fluffy Socks becomes interesting if the course is a little bit boggy. I do not imagine that, that In Italian's going to face a whole lot of pace pressure from any of the stablemates. But I don't know. If I'm Fev Rover, I'm not being, even though she did so well coming from the last day, I'm not sure against 4 horses from the same stable. I'm not being a little bit more aggressive and at least trying to make a move entering the far turn or something there. I think if Fev Rover's just held out the back and decides to like make one run, nobody else is going to do anything resembling dirty work there. So I'm hoping Fev Rover can maybe just be aggressive enough if we don't get a top level in Italian that Fluffy Socks could at least run second. Now, if it's firm turf, it's all out the window. I think it's just give the race to In Italian and be done with it. But I do think for me, on softer turf, I think that you could get cute. Trish says that In Italian's a single in the Diana. And you know what? If it's firm turf, and there's no question about that, I totally agree because she's going to be able to walk, and that should be fine. And if she were 3 to 5 in the fixed odds, I'd be in England. I'd be all about it. Honestly, that would be enough value for me. David Aragona guesses 2 to 5, and that's probably more like what the price is going to be. Anyway, what is your thought on this year's Diana, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, I go In Italian, but you got to think this horse has to throw in a clunker at some point, right?
It could happen. It happens to most of them.
But that's such a terrible handicapping angle. If you go back and watch Fev Rover, I was blown away on these airwaves. I said, I'm going to wait and see. This horse hasn't seen potential yet because of the odd running lines that we've seen once coming over. Ran a couple times, did so pretty well at Woodbine last year. And then in the Nassau, didn't even run until maybe the 16th pole and pulled herself completely into the race. I think that time forward figure at a 116 could be a 122-ish if fully cranked and set down. And that was the first start since October. Now you have a yielding course, so it could be hard to make the figure for it. I haven't talked to Craig or any of those guys about how confident they feel about that figure, but I mean, that felt like a primer for something big. And at 12 to 1, not a terrible price. What looks like the upside horse in this group.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I worry about race shape. I guess that's what I worry about. I worry about race shape. I worry about just strategically having to move too early, maybe to try to keep to try to keep the favorite honest at some point. And then I do think Fluffy Socks is a legit closer to come get her. But I really don't mind Fevrover for second. And I think that's the 12-1 is a good price. It's interesting. Back in 14 days, it seems doubtful to me that this was the original plan. I think it was probably more that race was so good. They said, well, man, she's just begging to be here. But I mean, she was bought for a lot of money. She was very, very good over in the UK. She was owned in partnership actually by a guy, the best, I'm going to just say it, the best analyst, the best written form analyst that I think I've ever read, Hugh Taylor, one of my colleagues at theraces.com. He owned a piece of Fevrover. They sold her, and she's been really good here. And obviously the last race looks like a potential new level of ability. In like a big full field, I'd like her so much more. I think at the price she's going to be, I'm not going to worry about the fact that she might be up against it strategy-wise, but I do worry she might be up against it a little bit strategy-wise. But, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out in the Diana. Definitely a race that could have Breeders' Cup implications. In Italian, obviously, nearly won the thing last year. I know you were torn between In Italian and Tuesday for one of your big moves there, and it worked out just fine for you. But there were some panicky moments about 3/16 from home, I'd say.
Yeah, it was Tuesday on Saturday, that's for sure. And Mark Cassidy was quoted. I'll give credit to the reporting. Whoever did the reporting said he's taking Dave Grenig, taking a page out of Jerkin's book, saying, "Run them when they're good. I know they're coming back in 2 weeks, but run them when they're good." So
yeah, he's capable of this move for sure. I'm not like wildly anti or anything. Like I said, I think is interesting at the price. There's this other part of me holding me back and wanting to get even, maybe a little cuter with the other Chad.
It's not a bad place to be. And you've got it. I would love to have, and this is why, Hong Kong, we've been hearing a lot on the airwaves about it. I would love to hear jockey intention ahead of time. What Chad huddles the group up and says, all right, market segmentation, I know you're fast, but Jose, let In Italian go. You're never going to catch that horse. Sit off of In Italian. And then Fluffy Socks, hang out with Fevrover. When Fevrover moves, you move. And then White Beam, it's like wherever you find yourself in the race.
Somewhere in between. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting horse too, White Beam. I mean, really has all the upside. But I think I just think this is a too tough of a spot at the price that she's going to be. But boy, the future is bright for that one. It's a talented, it's a small but talented field. In terms of that.
It'll be good.
So, what shall we talk about now? We've got they say 2 minutes, so let's talk about this race. And we should probably talk Schuylerville too at some point. And then at some stage here, you and or the audience need to be asking me some questions about the trip overseas. So what did you end up playing in? Remind me who you have in the contest here. Did you go with Thunder Ian at 43-1?
I sure did.
Awesome.
I think it was kind of a loose lead type of angle here on the rail. I think they're on the inner. Jacobson owns. He kind of knows what he's doing, and it's just the opening weekend at Saratoga. Anything can happen. So, I mean, do I feel great about the price? No, but when a horse runs against and finishes third behind yours truly looms boldly, better be on some tickets. But no, I think it was another competitive race, just like we saw previously. And I was imagining this horse was going to be a little bit more bet, but again, the difference between like 40-1 and 20-1, percentage wise is not that great of a change in total market pool. So,
when you think of it in terms of implied probability, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't let the price put you off of a horse like that on a day like this. My bigger fear would be that the favorite who looks live is the other one that's likely to go to the lead. I feel like you almost need the 4 to stumble a little bit or something to get the trip you're looking for here, and that's obviously not terribly likely. But hell, at the price you're getting, I don't think you're crazy or anything.
Yeah, a little bit of a cutback and could get the rail. Florence up. The guy knows what he's doing on grass, and I mean, a lot of things got to go the way with when you're playing a long shot like this. But yeah, I think the 4 is the horse to beat. 5 is interesting as well in here. Kingfish Stevens, another stalker type that the pace should set up pretty darn well today for this kind of presser closer to get back up into the frame. So that could be a good underneath use. And Unleash the Power, nothing really got me excited on this one. Saez is a board who's getting the first call to mount on this one. Imagine will be ridden a little bit aggressively, but has never really done anything with a hot pace and kind of as a, last out, stalked a neutral pace and didn't do much. Finished a half length behind, couldn't get the job done, and then 2 back, slow pace, and got caught late. So not quite a winning formula when you got the 4 and the 5 at the top of the market, who looks a bit more attractive.
Jackson asks us for our opinion about the 10 runner in this spot. He's been doing a fantastic job for us writing over at inthemoneypodcast.com. The 10 runner here is Consultant. Makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, that was a great trip angle last time at Laurel, making that early move into the fast pace. Now coming back, that was a 222-day layoff. Now coming back in just 26 days. The post isn't easy, but with the right kind of ride, if a trip can be worked out at double-digit odds, I don't mind that one. Clasaris already has a winner on the day. So, yeah, Consultant, very, very interesting. I keep coming back to the favorite and being very boring in this spot, but I like Jackson's case for the 10. Who does anybody else like out there? Who else are we playing? Let's take a quick look back at the leaderboard, Craig, if we have a second to do that, and we'll see what some of the top players in the contest are doing, and we can look at it through that lens, because even though it says post time, obviously it's going to take them 2 or 3 minutes to get down there. I don't know if you have the leaderboard open, Drew, on a separate tab or your monitor to take a look and just take a look at what the top few people have. I'm just curious to get some other prices to vet whether they come from the folks watching at home or the folks in the leaderboard.
Yeah, so top of the leaderboard, Michael Robinson connected on Into Happiness and pushed him up $22.90. So Louis Mazzarelli, a lot of these folks, top 9, all connected on that horse in the last race. Michael Domable's up there in 3rd. William Moravec, Daryl Parker, Michael Kiptis, and David Browning, Peter Bear. The champ, Michael Baychak, at 9th. And then it gets pretty tight from there around that $40 mark. So yeah,
Chris Couples has chimed in. Chris Couples has chimed in with a thought on Born a Gambler. So that's one worth taking a quick look at. Says basically has improved significantly since the switch to Maker, and that he makes figures, and he has the last 2 races faster than the buyer. I mean, to me, that becomes almost a no-brainer when you have a horse that looks better according to your proprietary info than what the public is seeing. That makes it a very easy call. Cremony says, let's go. Well, we'll go on with it. Thank you for tuning in. Glenn Parker, who's in 5th, is on the 6 runner here. That's Unleash the Power, who Drew was kind of lukewarm about. Give us the case if you feel like it, Glenn. Let us know what it was that you liked about Unleash the Power. Looks pretty logical. Horse that has some tactical speed and some competitive numbers. I mean, doesn't look like amazing value to me at 7-2, but certainly feels like one that should be considered. Kimbo goes with Dream Point, another big bomberoo for a price. Very different situation for this one, who's been running in these New York bred maidens. Got the job done last time going 7. Has to go a little bit further now. We'll see how Dream Point classes up. This one for 26 runner. But I'll tell you this. I've seen this before with horses where, they might be an 0 for 25 maiden, and then they might win 2 out of their next 3. There is that idea sometimes of the penny just dropping. So I wouldn't looking to be laying Dream Point, Kimbo, even though if Dream Point wins, I will be happy for you. I will not be wagering my own hard-earned in this spot. There's a ring at the door here, Drew, and that could be Susan getting home. She took a later flight than me. I took the earlier flight to make sure that I'd be home for Horseplayer Happy Hour. Let me just make sure she gets in okay. I'm going to leave you to narrate this and then throw it to Frank. Feel free to interact with the commenters, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't have the commenters pulled up, so apologies on this, but I am just surprised that the number 4 Sea Cottage is going to be as short a price as is. And I think it's a good question for us. If we were playing in the cash contest, would this be a horse that you would look to use at the morning line 7-2 and then drops down to 9-5? I think there could be some false narrative that, oh, there's so much confidence built in here, but this is a wide open bunch here. So not really sure about that one. And we can see, are there any show jumpers? No, but there's a lot of show money on that 4 to get up there and hang on, because you imagine the 4 is going to be speed and hasn't finished out of the frame in the last 6. So it feels like a decent show bet if that's your jam. Not something we always recommend. We recommend reverse try Keen. So put the number 4 My Sea Cottage in 3rd place. Followed by first and second, whoever you like to slot in there. Try and get a better payout on that. So, yeah, I like the number 1 Thunder Ian. I'm still kind of rolling with this horse. I may have to even put a little bit of a wager here as we are talking live about it. 3-year-old, lightly raced. Yeah, let me see if I can't pull up some comments by the folks on our other monitor here. It helps if you type with the right keyboard. Please hold while we wager. Yeah, so here's my show bet. I'm going to use the 4, 5, 6, and 10 over the 1 in this spot. Base bet of $1 is $12. So kind of the theory here is put a little bit of money on the win side. $10 gets you $390 back, $400 back, and then a little bit of a reverse try key underneath, and then a little exacta action in there as well to make sure we get it. And whoa, late scratch at the number 7 Dream Point. I think we were just talking about that horse, but late scratch, big price, so shouldn't impact the overall tote too much.
It shouldn't be bad. And Glenn mentions his angle on that runner we were talking about before. Unleash the Power is in David Aragona. He trusts. That makes sense. David is one of the best and does a fantastic job, especially with those value plays. I'm not sure if this was just a pick in the paper for David or one of his value plays for the day. I know I think it was the very first race of the meet he got off on a winning note with that Corsaris runner we were talking about before. That was the family, so it was good. It was a good thing that I went up and let them in. I never would have heard the end of that, Drew.
Yeah. Well, and Pete, you're gonna have to let me know when you can. So for the listeners at home, you and I typically talk at least 2 or 3 times a week, if not more. Text all the time. You and I haven't talked. This is the first time we've chatted in like a month. I feel like we're on a long distance relationship and we've been reunited.
Yes. Well, we'll get into post this race. I feel like we've covered most of what we need to. Normally, we would talk about Breeders' Cup, betting challenge, winning your in races. There aren't any this weekend. We have a week off of that. They'll be coming back fast and furious with the Haskell next week, which, by the way, deal isn't quite done yet. Going to have some special coverage for as Frank is getting ready to call this race. So we'll come back and we'll do some catching up. Feel free to hit me with your England questions after we see who takes out the 8th on opening day at Saratoga.
Last few to go in.
Before we cut over, we are live
Here
to
is Kingfish Stevens
put a reverse
in.
try key in for a show bet on the 1.
Okay.
So 4, 5, 6, 10, 4, 5, 6, 10 over
and the last
the 1.
one to load is Chileno. They're in the gate.
Going.
And they're off. My Sea Cottage is sprinting right to the front. Unleash the Power has good speed too, and Kingfish Stevens in the top flight as well. They're followed by Born a Gambler along the rail in fourth, 4 lengths off an honest early tempo. Chileno in the yellow colors is on the outside of Frontman, who hugs the rail 7 lengths off the lead. It's 2 more back to Foliage, followed then by American Grant, who's toward the back of the field. Double digits behind the front runner. Consultant is next. 5 seconds, Born a Gambler swings to the 3 path at the top of the stretch. And in behind them comes Kingfish Stevens. 1 more furlong from My Sea Cottage. Unleash the Power, chasing with determination, but still 2 lengths behind. In the center of the course, Frontman is rallying belatedly. It's My Sea Cottage taking them coast to coast. Unleash the Power, second best. Kingfish Stevens was third. Then it was a photo between Frontman and Born a Gambler.
Favorite getting the job done rather easily in the end there. Something, a little something in hand anyway. The kind of race that if you were up there, you feel good about the result. Chalk, chalk, you might say, unless you were trying to jockey for position with one of those two. If you're coming from further back, odds are that result not going to help you very much. Though sometimes in a pick and pray, it can. You can do sort of a little bit of a two-step with a chalky win or chalky place in a race later on. You know, the other thing we should talk about quickly here, Drew, is the Schuylerville, the traditional opening day stake race that we've got coming up next on the program. Who did you play in the contest for this one?
Yeah, nothing creative. I think Wine on Tap, is that the horse's name? The 7.
Yep, Wine on Tap, the 7th. Morning line favorite in this spot. That's interesting. So you were thinking, especially with some of the prices you played up to this point, that that you could get away with that. In real life, how's it looking for you after this somewhat chalky result? You're on the outside looking in, I imagine. So this might be actually the perfect kind of horse to put you up in that top 10% again. Yeah,
I just need to get probably $15 more. So I'm going to need to connect on these last 2. But, you know, in a pick and pray format, it doesn't matter if it's at the beginning or the end. No one else can block you. So I don't worry about the sequence of it. It's just how the hand is played. So, yeah, it's going to be close. It depends on what Wine on Tap goes off. If we see 5-2, I mean, what's that going to be? 7, 10, yeah, 11. But I think we're going to see even money with all the buzz I'm hearing on that horse.
What is your play in the last? Will you be drawing live or not necessarily?
Well, considering I picked the worst horse in that race by results standpoint in the 8th, the 10th, I am also going with the 1 Power and Glory.
Okay, so you're going to be drawing live no matter what. That's a 20-1 shot on the morning line that looks like will be all of that. What did you like about that one?
I just don't think there was a lot I liked elsewhere. So, yeah, I thought ran respectively on the back in Saratoga at the maiden race. It kind of tended some hot fractions a little bit, but I don't kind of stepping in the right direction. Again, this isn't one I'm going to the bank to bet. I'm probably not even going to bet on the side, but give me a hope and a prayer to get this one home. But obviously the 7 is very live in here. The 4, you'd have to go back and do some replay work and see what that squeeze at the start means, what that start had for this horse. That could be a good little value bet. The 2 kind of seems to have flattened out a little bit.
Good note in the comments here from Chris to maybe make a note about Dream Point. Was a vet scratch on 624. Now again today, definitely one to eye with suspicion potentially on the return to the races. We just got a couple of minutes left, Drew. Let me know how you want to do this. If you have a question or two about the trip, we can do it that way, or I can just mention a couple of high points.
Yeah. So you spent a month over there. To me, it felt like a year. It's good to have you back. We were taking bets of how many scotches, or maybe it was kegs of scotches, you went through while you were over there. What any notable? God. You know us. We're going to talk food and wine and beverage. What was your most wow, that drink? I'm hoping it's a scotch of some sort.
Yeah, there were some amazing malts. There was a very old. There were a couple of just crazy ones. Like there was a 40-year-old Aberfeldy that was just crazy. I have to go back to my notes. There was some really old Ben Riach that was absolutely wonderful. I drank like a 50-year-old Glenfarclas that was crazy. Now some of these older isn't necessarily better, of course, but it stands out when there's like you're drinking something that's older than you, so those drams get extra credit for sure. But some of those old ones were some of my favorites. I loved touring the distillery where basically the distillery in Speyside that's known as the home of Chivas Regal, because my grandfather, who's also one of the guys who got me involved in racing, he was a brand manager for Chivas Regal for years. So going to Strathisla, where I have a feeling he probably visited back in the day, was just like there was some real magic at the various distilleries, and I loved Glenfarclas. But I mean, really, I had an amazing. The ones that I did the deep dives in, I had great times at all of them.
Yeah. And I heard Perrin joined you as well. Did she have any highlights of this trip?
Oh my God, we had so many fun ones. The last 2 days were great. Susan was working, so Perrin and I basically did like a little bit of an eating and theater tour of London. I almost said Brooklyn in my brain dead head. But yeah, 2 days ago we went to Borough Market for lunch. She loves pastrami and corned beef, the English equivalent they call salt beef. It's basically just corned beef, but pretty popular over there. And there was a stand that had salt beef. So we got salt beef sandwiches, sat in an amazing pub right there called The Rake that had just incredible, really great showing cask beer. Sat there in the sun. I had a pint. She had her lemonade. We ate our sandwiches. And then we walked over to the Globe Theater and saw a terrific production of Midsummer Night's Dream. Even at 10, with the Elizabethan, the Shakespearean stuff, sometimes I struggle with the language. She's 10 and she's like loving it. I read her the little synopsis beforehand, and like it's a very physical acting. It makes it easier to follow what's going on. That was great. Real trip highlight too was earlier in the trip going with Susan as well. And we got our picture. We did the whole tour of the globe and got our pictures taken there. That was wonderful. And then yesterday we went down to this really cool restaurant in Brixton that was in like a 19th century laundry. Okay. So it's like this really cool old stone utilitarian business, but like reinvented as this very hip, modern, like farm forward restaurant. We both had the steak and chips, which was incredible. And they had Pims. It was really good. I kept Perrin away from that, but I had some Pims, and we had strawberries and cream for dessert. Oh, and a watermelon salad that she dug into. And then we went to the movies. We went to see Elemental, which was very fun. And then a couple hours of chilling. And then she and I went down I had an errand to run in Bermondsey. So of course, stopped by maybe I'm just going to say it, my number one favorite brewery in the world. It's certainly top 5, the Colonel in Bermondsey, to see Moritz and the team down there. Moritz wasn't working, but got to see G and some of my other pals down there. And then we went to this really cool ramen spot in a railway arch, very tucked away and cool, called Bone Daddies. And Perrin wanted to order a second bowl. She liked it so much. So it was really this, it was a lot of, those were just a few sample days. The whole trip was kind of like that, though. It was
my gosh. She's gonna be the most cultured young woman when she goes to college. She's like looking around at her classmates like, yeah, you haven't had ramen under a railway archway, whatever the heck you just said.
Now, did you hear the thing? Did you see her? She had her network TV debut. I got dozens of messages from people about this, but I'm not sure if you saw it. She was on that show Generation Gap with my mom, and so she got a great clip for her reel if she decides she wants to do something in theater. So and apparently I got a lot of airtime too, because a lot of people I don't even know were like, "Was that you? That looked just like you." I wore a customary suit and hat for the Generation Gap premiere. You can probably find that on the ABC website if you're interested. But she and my mom did a great job. It was a ton of fun being there for them. All right. We'll roll through these scores one more time. We'll talk more London later. Michael Robinson, Lou Mazzarelli, Michael Domable, Daryl Parker, Michael Baychok. Great to see him playing with us. I owe him a phone call. William Morovich, Michael how can I keep butchering Michael's name, and it's not a hard name. Keotapis. I'm going with that. Michael, or if one of Michael's confederates is listening, correct me on that, please, if I'm wrong. David Browning, RX champ. Peter Bear, former BC champion like yourself. Kevin Murphy, I'm assuming that's our Kevin Murphy from In the Money Media, helping us with the social media. Nathan White, Scott McGovern, Mark Mahoney, Gina Giarusso, William Smith, Jeff Van Dree, and Mark Stovall right now. But all to play for with 2 races left to go here. That same Kevin Murphy, I'm sure, will send a shot of the leaderboard when all is said and done. Drew, this was so fun. I say we do it again tomorrow. Why don't we look at the Woodbine late pick 4 for the late week show? You up for that? You're muted.
If we can push it back to the afternoon and have beers and watch Saratoga, that sounds great. But typically we record before work starts for me, so
I'd like to do that if we could.
Trying to mainline as much espresso as we both can at the same time.
We'll talk. Text me in the morning what might be a good time. I'm starting early. I'll be on half UK time, so we'll get it done. This was fun. We're going to do it again. Loved all the comments from everybody. Producer Craig, thank you so much for making our jobs so easy. We always appreciate that. I'm going to go upstairs and see how the family's travel back was. It was smart of me to move that flight, though. That wouldn't have been good arriving halfway through on my first show back. So I, at least, if nothing else, I get to feel like that was my good decision of the day. Everybody, enjoy the rest of opening day Saratoga and all of opening weekend. We got so much coming up for you, from Del Mar to Monmouth to Saratoga to Indiana to Colonial Downs. Follow it all. Most of all, pay attention to everything going on over at breederscup.com. They've got some amazing new merchandise. We're going to be featuring that in some upcoming weeks. We're also going to get back on the beam, doing more Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge stories, Breeders' Cup betting stories in general. I kind of forgot to do mine today, but it's just as well. I would have told it scatterbrain given the overall state of things. That's going to do it. This show's been a co-production of Breeders' Cup and In the Money Media. For Drew Coatney, I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.